Yeah, and Mikey, you hit on that too, in terms of it sounds like you've surrounded yourself
Yeah.
around like-minded people, whether if it's from the business side or from the industry side. But you know, what prompted you to do that? What do you look for when you're trying to learn something new? Yeah, tell us about that journey.
Yeah, so we actually almost went bankrupt towards the end of 2018. Um, I had a mountain of debt, and I was not focused on the right metrics in the business. I didn't know my numbers. I wasn't tracking my numbers, and so that kind of led me to a coaching group, and they got in there and they started kind of teaching us what metrics. Every business has their own metrics to track, and so they started helping us find what are the metrics that are important to you to track. And so as I started kind of tracking the right numbers and trending in the right direction, now it kind of led me to, who's the right team, because I had people in place, and it's not their fault that they sucked at their job, but I had people that truly sucked at their job in our company. And so I started um, trying to give some of that back to them, trying to put some of the responsibility on them in the right way. And I surrounded myself with a team that was willing to take ownership. And if they weren't willing to take ownership, I didn't even have to let them go. They just excused themselves because the extreme ownership approach of putting it back on them, letting them fail, but being there to guide them, through their failure. So that approach helped a lot. But being around like-minded people in my coaching group, being around like-minded people inside of my industry. So ponds, it's unique. We have certified aquascape contractors. So we've got a very tight knit group. There's only about 300 countries or 300 companies in the country. So we're tight. And then in the coaching group, it's a bunch of similar like-minded business owners who are going in the same direction. And in that group, there's about 300 people, give or take, in that group. You find people who maybe think about things and have the same kind of perspective as you. And so you just kind of start to align with them and you start talking to them. And it's interesting, as I've figured out one section, I've moved on to another person, and I've started working with that person and kind of getting their perspective on stuff. And so I've moved through, like 6 or 7 accountability groups over the last, 3 years, because, you kind of get one thing kind of figured out and it's like, well, that's not my challenge anymore. And I'm tired of talking about that challenge. Here's the next challenge that I'm dealing with. Let's go find somebody who's dealing with that challenge and what's their perspective on it.
That's interesting. I remember also telling people in the past, like, if you're an early stage company, and for example, and the other people in your group aren't that anymore or are still that, then you need to basically go to the next base so that you're talking to the right people, or else you're going to be sitting back talking about startup things when you're not in a startup phase anymore.
Yeah. And you're taking startup actions and
totally.
Was it being part of these groups that identified the fact that you had to learn how to say no, or was that an internal discussion within your company to learn how to say no? That was one of the things that we advertised on the show, that you learn how to say no, and then that propelled your business forward. So, what was the genesis of learning how to say no?
Yeah, so it's been an evolution of it. It didn't just all of a sudden happen like I'm, all of a sudden saying no. But when I had the numbers in front of me and I could see that if we cut grass, or if we spread mulch, or if we did trimming bushes or stuff like that, there is no way that we can hit the margins that we need to hit. And so when you're literally looking at those numbers and you're paying your clients to be in their yard because you're paying your team, you're paying your overhead, you're paying stuff. When I'm literally paying out money to do a job, it's easy to say no. It's like, and then, when you have people ask for stuff that you don't want to be doing, and your team is going to give you a bunch of pushback and your culture is not set up to do those kind of things. Again, it is easy to say no because you're going to get an earful from them if you're saying yes to something that they don't want to be doing.
Dude, the numbers don't lie. And I tell you, I mean, so going through business school, my negotiations class was probably the most impactful class that I took, because it's like when you boil everything down to numbers, I mean, it takes all of your emotion out of it. It's either,
Yep.
you have your price, you have your reservation price, and it's either going to hit it or it's not. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, numbers don't lie with everything. Sales, projections, pick it. I mean, it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
What's something that we